Hi, it's Gwyn. Welcome back to Revolver Beatles channel. I'm a little bit late getting out of the starting blocks for this one, but I'm going to make no excuses. I have had a lovely weekend up in Liverpool, and this was literally handed to me as we were heading out the door on Friday. So got this on release date, which is fantastic, but I just haven't had the chance to have a look at it. So I'm going to open it up and let's have a look at what's inside. To be completely upfront and honest, I have seen a few other reviews about, unboxing videos and what have you. So I do kind of know what I'm expecting to see, but from my own eyes, let's have a look inside. Using the old trusty scalpel to peel back the first layer. You don't need to see the hype sticker on the front, do you? Right, as I've seen elsewhere, really nice, good, sturdy box it's contained in, and we have all the details on this fly sheet on the back. The box, really nicely produced. We got nice matte laminate finish with the spot UV for the handprint. So really good quality item in terms of the box. Beautiful looking book that I know accompanies it. And again, I think the theme of this, as I flick through, first impressions, it is beautifully produced. Photography, got lyrics, photographs are brilliant, and again using the spot UV finishing effect to the book, which is absolutely lovely. I will get to having a full read and thumb through this book, but on first impressions, wow, that's beautiful. That photography from the inside doesn't disappoint. And this is a quality item, beautiful book, and yeah, I'm going to really enjoy reading through this when I have a little bit more time. So first impressions of the book, lovely, really love that. See what we've got. This is the main event, and this is the important thing. This is where the music's contained, and that is going to be my primary focus of the review, though I am very interested in the packaging too. But we've got this booklet, which is the recording notes. And again, this is going to be a really interesting read. So looking forward, and I will bring some bit more detail of that later in the video. But again, a nice thing. We've got the demos and rarities on a disc here, which is in a very suitably supplied poly-lined inner sleeve, 180 gram vinyl. Oh, looks lovely. And also for the remix of the main album, which again in a poly-lined sleeve, which is great. Paul Hicks music remix, which I'm looking forward to listening to. And then we have these. I am aware of these, having seen them on other videos, and I have to say that first impressions are, as I think others have also intonated, is just to confirm what Andrew from Parlogram Auction said, no, it doesn't fit. His wasn't a one-off, it is a standard feature, and with it enclosed in the sleeve, it doesn't fit back in the box. So if you wanted to keep your disc in this sleeve, it's difficult to get in and out for a start, but you'd be sacrificing the poly liner, which I don't think I'd be prepared to do. So these are just going to remain in the box. Considering the quality that's been put into the production of the book, why couldn't we have had a proper sleeve to contain the two albums. Polylined would be fantastic as well, but why couldn't we have a replica of the original album sleeve? It's a gatefold, so could easily have accommodated 2 discs, but why do we have these 2 flimsy efforts? Just matte laminated, a decent matte laminated album cover with a spot UV on the hands would have been brilliant, but I think we might have cut a corner here. Saving a few bob, I guess, I would have quite happily paid a bit more for a proper album sleeve, but that's another discussion entirely, I think. So we do have an album sleeve here, matte laminated. I would have liked to have seen a spot UV around this hand, but let's have a look inside. And we have all the elements that we were expecting. We got Sunshine Life for Me, Sail Away Raymond on a 7-inch single. Let's have a look at that. You can feel the quality in this actually. Quite a weighty bit of vinyl. Look forward to playing that shortly. A DVD with all the components on there. And as you can see, 2 CDs, which will have the Paul Hicks remix and the demos and rarities on the second CD. So, I quite like that. I just think that the other 2 discs on vinyl should have been in equally something that resembled this. Let's put that aside for the moment and let's concentrate on the music. So I've had a good chance to absorb the music, and I've really tried to resist the temptation of listening to the album over the recent months since the announcement of the release, so that it would be as fresh to me as possible. So I'm going to go through track by track, giving you my thoughts on the songs and the treatment applied by Paul Hicks to the remix. So let's kick it off. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, which is a familiar song to all of us, I'm sure. A track that I really, really love. To me, it seems to have a very much a brighter soundscape. Klaus's jaunty bass guitar is lining the way, and really it's cementing George's style that he would use over the future years, with, you know, sharp melodic acoustic guitars, economic slide guitar parts, and very comfortable vocals. George was never one to really push his vocals very strongly, but he's got a very comfortable style, and that's really encapsulated in the opening track. Sue Me, Sue You Blues, another track that I've always loved. There's a fantastic interplay and exchange between George's slide guitar and the marvellous piano contribution by Nicky Hopkins. There seems to be a wonderful exchange and weaving of their 2 parts, which I guess kind of sums up the to and fro and warring parties in the legal disputes that George was encountering at the time. But throughout all this, the whole tune is really knitted together by some amazing drumming by Jim Keltner, not just on this track, but throughout the whole album. And it really holds the track together beautifully. Marvellous piano again on the next track, The Light That Has Lighted the World. And George's slide guitar is absolutely sumptuous on this track and sounding better than ever on this remix. Track 4 is Don't Let Me Wait Too Long. George's vocals sound really fresh, and there's a pounding rhythm that goes right the way through the track, and also a galloping percussion part that I don't think I've ever really detected before. It's an absolutely pure delight. Why this track was never a single, I don't know, but it's possibly my favourite track on the album. The next track is Who Can See It, and unbelievably. It's take 94. Beautiful orchestration on this track, and a vocal part that I think is probably clearer and stronger than I remember from before, but it's absolutely wonderful. The final track on side one is Living in the Material World, which introduces some fun and a welcome increase in the tempo, and also some humour on this last track. Jim Horn contributes a wonderful, wonderful sax part, and Ringo and Jim Keltner have a drumming duo between them. A wonderful track to close side one. So, having flipped the record over, we have side two, which kicks off with The Lord Loves the One That Loves the Lord. We have more Jim Horn sax, which is very welcome, and George is playing a beautiful bluesy influenced slide guitar, and I think it's some of his best work on the album. The next track is Be Here Now, and again, probably for me, a contender for best track on the album. George has an Indian style inflection to his vocals, which are absolutely beautiful, and there's a haunting drone that flows throughout the track. It's a really quite an intense track, but even more so when you have the introduction of George double track vocals later on in the track. As I said, probably my favourite track on the album. Try Some Buy Some is the next track, and All Things Must Pass Leftover, but a wonderful, wonderful track. John Barham provides wonderful orchestral swells which grow and grow to make this a huge and epic track. The penultimate track on the album is The Day the World Gets Round. George has yearning vocals on this track, and there are brass stabs on this track being as prominent as I remember. So that could well be due to the good work here of Paul Hicks. The final track, That Is All, and again I think that Paul Hicks has peeled back a layer here, because we have a beautiful harpsichord contribution by Gary Wright that is much more forward in the mix, I think, than I remember, and I think the track benefits for it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a classic lament and a superb album closer. The second disc in the box set is George's outtakes and demos. We start with Give Me Love, which is take 18, which is a sweet acoustic version. Not too dissimilar to what you would expect, but it is an absolutely gorgeous version. Sue You Blues Take 5 is the next track, and I'm a sucker for studio chat, which reveals the process in the studio. And it has some beautiful slide guitar on this. George was red hot on his guitar at the time. The Light That Has Lighted the World is take 13 and seems to be a bit bass and piano heavy, but it still really works for me. The next track is Don't Let Me Wait Too Long, take 49, and it's a piano and guitar working version of the track, and a pretty good one at that. This is followed by take 93 of Who Can See It. My God, he must have really put the musician through it in the studio, but it's intense, not too different from the actual version of the song. The title track is take 31, which has the 1-2 Buckle My Shoe intro, which was quite fun. It's a really nice version. Drums seem to be much more to the fore on this track, and George's vocals are a little raspy, probably a track recorded at the end of the day. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But a beautiful and very fun version. The Lord Loves the One That Loves the Lord is take 3, slightly quicker paced than the actual version that was released, but really cool. And there's a beautiful, beautiful organ solo by Gary Wright towards the end of the track. Be Here Now is the next track, and it's take 8. And this was released prior to the release of the album, and it is an absolutely sublime version with, if possible, an even more heartfelt vocal. Perhaps not a better vocal, but I think a more heartfelt vocal than on the released version. Try Some Buy Some is an alternate version with some slide guitar accents which remind me very much of My Sweet Lord. The track is without orchestration, but it's a really interesting listen. The next track is The Day the World Gets Round, and this is take 22. The acoustic guitars are doing the heavy lifting here, but it is marvellous and has a very, very solid vocal by George. That Is All is take 24, And you can detect that George's vocal is a little bit tired on this track, but nonetheless is a super take and displays the real magnificence of this band who are playing really tightly. So that represents all of the tracks, an alternate version of each of the track from the main album, but there are 2 other tracks on the outtakes and demos. We have, first of all, Miss Odell, and critics have really pointed out the seriousness and overtly earnest flavour of the album, and that they were quite harsh in their criticism of Living in the Material World at the time. But this might have been a nice addition to the original track order and might have brought a little bit of levity, which was perhaps missing. But it's difficult to argue with George's decisions. I love the album, and perhaps just leave it as it is. And the final track that we're provided is Sunshine Life for Me, Sail Away Raymond, which was eventually given to Ringo. But this is, for me, a really, really fun track, really different in sound to anything else that was recorded during the sessions, so wouldn't have fitted on the album at all, but it's really good to hear this track. It's a great tune nonetheless, and I love its inclusion. So overall, what are my thoughts on the album? Well, I think the thing that stands out is that George had really assembled a real crack crew of musicians to help him on this album. Jim Keltner, Gary Wright and Nicky Hopkins in particular have wonderful contributions on the album. These musicians were obviously red hot at this period of time, as was recognised by who else they were working with during this period. They were working with Bob Dylan, they were working with The Who, The Stones, so they were much in demand. George was absolutely right to assemble these musicians in particular because they were absolutely on their top of the game. So final thoughts on the packaging and the box set overall? Well, I have a little bit of a niggle, as I mentioned earlier, in relation to not having a replica of the original sleeve to house the 2 vinyl discs, but that is a small criticism, and I look well beyond that. The most important thing to me is the music. This is a fabulous remix by Paul Hicks. It cements my opinion that it is one of George's very best albums. For too long, Living in the Material World has suffered by being the next release after All Things Must Pass and has lived in its shadow. But this is a majestic album. The songs are some of George's very best, and it has a very special place in my heart with its emotional breadth and a very, very personal viewpoint from George. This is a very special album. So for those of you who like to see a rating as such applied to reviews, then for me, it's a 5-star. So those are my thoughts, but what are yours? If you could let me know, I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say. What's your thoughts on the packaging? What's your thoughts on the music, more importantly? Please let me know. As I mentioned earlier, this video has been delayed because I was up in Liverpool at the weekend. So there will be a road trip video following in the next week or 2. So stay tuned for that. But also we have tons of releases that are going to be landing on the doorstep very soon. So please stay tuned to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye for now.